This is to be a movie about flying, one of my very favorite subjects. In fact, there's nothing I'd rather talk about, especially during this 50th anniversary year of powered flight. Of course, I like to talk about radio and television, too. They've been mighty good to this country, boy. This is the way I make my living. But what makes that living worthwhile is to get out there in the wild blue yonder in a good airplane with the whole universe waiting for me. Not just because it's a thrill, although it certainly is that, but because I like to think that aviation, as far as it has advanced, and it certainly has come a long way, is still very young. Oh, we've come a long way since the days when my good friend, the ace of aces, Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, used to fly around in France in those Spads. The Dean of Aviation. Just think, he's been flying for nearly 40 years. Why, it's only 50 years since the Wright brothers. You know, they call me one of the old-timers in aviation, but I didn't begin to fly in earnest until 1929. Gosh, that's almost 25 years ago now, isn't it? But you know, I've done more flying in the last 3 years than I did in the first 22. Here, let me show you. I have been commissioned in the Naval Reserve since 1939, but because of an old injury to my legs, the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery wouldn't clear me for military airplane flying until 1950. So it was in 1950, in September, that I got my Navy wings at Pensacola, the happiest day of my life. Since that time, I have qualified as a carrier pilot, as a jet pilot, as a helicopter pilot, and here is the coveted Navy green ticket, the highest instrument rating given to Navy pilots. Of course, I'm very proud of all of these military certificates. But here's one here that makes me very, very, very happy. This is the certificate that Captain Eddie Rickenbacker gave me recently, making me an honorary captain in Eastern Airlines. As I was saying, planes have come a long way in the last 50 years. Here's one very much like the one that the Wright brothers used. Used to make 40 to 50 miles an hour. There's still one or two of these around, too. It's a funny-looking affair, but most of the basic principles we use today were developed in this plane. It didn't fly high, and it didn't fly far, but by golly, it flew. Looks kind of like an overgrown box kite, doesn't it? Well, you can take it from me, it feels like one, too, when you're up in it. You've heard the expression, flying by the seat of your pants? Well, this is where it came from. Sitting in this old bucket seat right here. See, the Wright brothers had no instruments of any kind, except a little old oil gauge down here. It tells you got some oil pressure back there. And this stick, this column, and this wheel is exactly the same as we have in the big airliners of today. When I push the stick forward, notice that flipper comes down, it pushes the tail up and the nose down. Vice versa this way. Want to drop the right wing, do it this way. Left wing this way. And here are the rudder bars that work the rudders in the tail. You see, the principles were the same then as they are today. No difference. Here is a model of a Spad, the airplane that Captain Eddie Rickenbacker flew in World War I, only 10 or 12 years after the Wright brothers' first flight. It's a shame that it had to be used as a weapon of destruction so soon, but the war brought that on. This is Captain Rickenbacker in the plane he made famous in World War I. These old films show the dashing young skipper of the 94th Squadron leading his boys into a dogfight. The hat and the ring insignia was always present when the fighting was thickest. The wild blue yonder was really wild in those days, when there was just so much wood and canvas between you and the enemy, between you and the ground. Down in flames was the rule rather than the exception. They had no protection. They had no parachutes. Yes, they paid a high price, but it was through Captain Rickenbacker's exploits in World War I that the terrific fighting power in the airplanes was made known to man. This little Spad carried a very powerful engine for those days and often flew up to 135 miles an hour straight down. There aren't many of them left, but here comes one of those old-timers now. And look who's flying it. It's Captain Eddie, the one and only, Captain Rickenbacker. Hey, wait a minute. I want to get in this scene myself.
Hey, Captain Eddie. How's it feel to be at the controls of this old baby again?
Well, frankly, it brings back a lot of memories, Arthur. Some good, some not so good, but maybe we had to do it regardless. You know, many a morning I used to sit around up there at 20,000 feet with the sun at my back, waiting for the enemy Fokkers to come around.
20,000 feet in that open cockpit?
Right.
Nowadays, we got heated and pressurized cabins. Didn't you get cold?
Oh, how? It sure was. In fact, we had to come down to thaw out. You know, it gets so cold up there. Yes, Arthur, it's a wonderful little ship, in spite of the fact that it's made up of wood and wires and struts and slack and tape, and pulled together with all of these wonderful combination gadgets. The fact of the matter is, the only metal in it, the engine and the machine guns. Yes, quite a change.
And in 30 years, too.
True, and on the other hand, when you take a look at the beautiful super constellation, all metal. One end to the other, aluminum, steel, brass, copper, in fact, every kind of metal known to science is involved in its structure.
Just take a look at that super constellation, folks.
114 feet long, with a wingspan of 123 feet. 4 of the latest compounded engines of 3,250 horsepower each. Do you realize how much power that is? Why, each engine has more power than a locomotive. This plane can fly up to around 400 miles an hour, and we are going to take a ride in it. Let's hear what Captain Eddie is saying.
Arthur, one of those wheels weighs almost as much as a Spad. By the way, here comes your crew.
Oh, hello, Dick.
Hi, Dickie boy.
Hiya, Captain.
How are you? Hello, you.
Hello, Captain.
Nice
Hey,
to see
you.
Hello, Captain.
Arthur, we're due out of here at 2 o'clock. Just 1 hour from now.
I'm ready.
Well, as long as you fellas are going to do the flying, I might as well go on. Have a good trip. So long,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you,
So
Captain.
long. What a guy. Well, now we're going to take you on a regularly scheduled flight from New York to Miami. Only this time, you're coming up in the cockpit with us, and we're going to show you what goes on behind the scenes. Well, Hugh, how are we fixed?
Okay, sir. I'll see you on board.
Good. Now, folks, I want you to meet my co-captain for today's trip. This is Captain Dick Merrill. Over 25 years with Eastern Airlines. One of the grandest guys and one of the best pilots who ever lived. I'm sure you know of his exploits as well as I do. To name one, he was the first pilot to fly a commercial flight across the Atlantic and return. What do you say, Captain?
I say, Captain, let's check in at crew scheduling and then go look at the weather.
Aye, sir, we'll do it.